My own nephew stole $15,000 from me, my trust, and my heart. He sat at my table, ate the food I cooked, and laughed in my face. I never thought family could betray like this, but karmically, he had to pay double for what he took. This is my story of betrayal, justice, and the hardest lesson of family.
I never thought I'd be sitting here, telling the world that my own blood, my nephew, the boy I once carried on my shoulders at family picnics, stole $15,000 from me. Not only that, but he thought he could get away with it. Little did he know, karma has sharp teeth. The court didn't just make him pay it back. They made him pay double. Now let me take you back a little, so you can understand how this all happened. My name's Richard. I'm 62 years old, retired, living in a modest house my late wife and I bought over 30 years ago. I don't live fancy, I don't drive flashy cars, but I've always been careful with money. I worked hard as an electrician, saved for retirement, and always believed in helping family when they were in need. My nephew, Daniel, well, he's 32, the son of my younger sister. Growing up, he was the kind of boy everyone spoiled. My sister couldn't say no to him, my parents slipped him money whenever he asked, and the rest of us just shook our heads. I'll admit, when he was a kid, I thought it was cute. But now, that same never told no attitude grew into something ugly. Entitlement, greed, and a lack of respect for anyone else's hard work. Still, I tried to keep good ties with him. Family is family, right? We had dinners together, we met at Christmas, and when he called me Uncle Rich, I honestly felt warm inside. Maybe that's why it hurt so much when I found out what he'd done. It started one quiet morning in May. I was making coffee, humming to myself, when I opened an email from my bank. It said, "Suspicious activity detected." My stomach dropped. I'm not the kind of man who buys things online often, and certainly not at 3 in the morning. I logged into my account, and what I saw almost made me drop my mug. Multiple charges, thousands of dollars, from electronic stores, luxury clothing websites, even a hotel in Las Vegas. I rubbed my eyes, thinking maybe it was a scam email. But no, the charges were real. Over $15,000 gone. I sat down, hands shaking, muttering, "What in the world?" I couldn't believe it. My retirement fund was safe, but my credit card, the one I kept for emergencies, was wide open. I called the bank, reported fraud, but something didn't add up. Whoever did this, they knew my address, my info. It wasn't some stranger from across the world. It was close. And then came the gut punch. A week later, I got a call from the fraud department. The voice on the other end said, "Mr. Thompson, we traced several of the purchases. They were delivered to an address connected to your family." I froze. Which family? I asked, my throat dry. The man replied, "A Daniel Wilson." I nearly dropped the phone. Daniel. My nephew. My sister's boy. The one I gave gas money to when he couldn't afford it. The one I invited into my home dozens of times. I wanted to deny it. No, not Daniel. He wouldn't. But deep down I knew. I remembered the sly way he asked me once, "Hey, Uncle Rich, you keep your card numbers written down anywhere?" I laughed it off back then. I thought he was joking. Turns out he wasn't. The more I dug, the worse it got. He'd been living like a king on my dime. He bought a new TV, sneakers, designer suits, even rented a convertible for a week. And all the while, he never said a word to me, never admitted anything. He even came over one Sunday, sat at my table, ate the roast chicken I cooked, and smiled in my face. That was the moment the betrayal cut the deepest. Sitting across from him, I realized he was lying to me with every laugh, every story. And in my heart, I decided, I wasn't going to let this slide. The real storm was only beginning. What happened next split my family right down the middle. Some said I was cruel. Some said I had every right. And Daniel? He thought he was untouchable. But he was about to learn, you don't steal from family, and walk away smiling. After I discovered the truth, I couldn't sleep for nights. I kept pacing the living room, staring at the credit card bills, whispering to myself, how could he do this to me? To his own uncle? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel's face, laughing at my table, while secretly bleeding me dry. I decided to confront him directly before doing anything else. I drove over to his apartment one Saturday afternoon. He opened the door, wearing a brand new watch and a leather jacket. Both expensive. Both bought with my money. "Uncle Rich." "What a surprise," he said, grinning like nothing was wrong. I stepped inside, my heart pounding. "Daniel, we need to talk. Right now." He looked confused, or at least pretended to. "Sure, what's up?" I pulled out the papers from the bank, the list of transactions. I slammed them down on his coffee table. "You want to tell me why all these deliveries ended up with your name on them?" His smile faded for a moment, but then he chuckled nervously. "Oh, come on, Uncle Rich. Don't be so dramatic. I just borrowed the card a little. You've got plenty saved up. I thought you wouldn't even notice." My jaw nearly hit the floor. "Borrowed? Daniel, you stole $15,000. That's not borrowing, that's theft." He rolled his eyes like a spoiled teenager. "Relax. I was gonna pay you back. Eventually." That word, eventually, lit a fire in me. "Do you have any idea how much trust you've destroyed? I treated you like a son. And this is how you repay me." He stood up, puffing his chest out. "Look, you've had your whole life to save money. You're retired. I'm just trying to live a little. Don't act like it's such a big deal." I couldn't believe the arrogance. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from rage. "Daniel, you're going to pay every cent back. And if you don't, I'll make sure the law gets involved." That's when he laughed. Actually laughed right in my face. "The law? You wouldn't dare. Mom would never forgive you if you dragged family through court." And there it was. He thought he was safe, because my sister, his mother, would protect him. I left that apartment shaking, my blood boiling. On the drive home, I knew I had a choice. Let him walk all over me, or stand my ground. That night, I called my sister. "Linda," I said, "we need to talk about your son." The silence on the other end told me she already knew something was wrong. I explained everything. The charges, the deliveries, the confrontation. By the time I finished, my voice was cracking with anger and disappointment. But instead of outrage at Daniel, my sister sighed. "Rich. He's had a hard time lately. He just needed a little help. Couldn't you just let it go?" My heart sank. "Let it go? He stole $15,000 from me, Linda. That's not a little help. That's a crime." She raised her voice then. "He's my son. And if you press charges, you'll destroy him. He'll never recover from something like that. Please don't do this." I couldn't believe my ears. My own sister was asking me to stay silent, to sacrifice my savings, just to protect her son from consequences. I answered firmly, "Linda, I love you. But your son crossed a line. If he doesn't fix this, I will go to the police." She hung up on me. That was the beginning of the family war. The next week, whispers started. Cousins called me, some siding with me, others saying I was heartless. "It's just money, Rich," one of them said. "Family should stick together." But I kept thinking, if family means letting someone rob you blind and smile about it, then what's the point of family at all? Days turned into weeks. Daniel didn't pay me back. Instead, he strutted around town in his fancy clothes, acting like he'd beaten me. I even heard from a neighbor that he bragged about it. "Uncle Rich is too soft," he told his buddies. "He'll never do a thing." That was the last straw. I walked into the police station with every piece of evidence I had. The bills, the delivery receipts, the bank records. The officer listened carefully, his brow furrowing deeper with every page. Finally, he said, "Mr. Thompson, this is serious. You did the right thing by coming here." Filing the report was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I felt like I was betraying my family, but at the same time, I knew the truth. It wasn't me tearing the family apart. It was Daniel with his greed and lies. When the police showed up at his door, Daniel called me that same night, screaming into the phone. "How dare you? You're ruining my life." I answered calmly, though my heart was pounding. "No, Daniel. You ruined your own life the moment you decided to steal from me." He cursed me out, said I was dead to him, that I'd regret it. But I didn't flinch. For the first time, I felt a strange sense of peace. I had chosen the hard road, but the right one. The case moved quickly. The evidence was undeniable. Still, my sister showed up at my house one evening, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Rich," she begged, "drop the charges. He's my only son. Prison will destroy him." I looked at her, my heart aching. "Linda, he destroyed me first. And if I let him get away with this, he'll just do it again. To me, to someone else, maybe even to you. Do you really want that?" She had no answer. She just wept and walked away. The trial was scheduled. And as the date drew closer, the tension in our family reached a breaking point. Some relatives stopped speaking to me altogether. Others quietly told me they admired my courage. But the biggest surprise came from someone I never expected. My father. He's 86 years old, fragile but sharp as ever. One night he called me. His voice was raspy but firm. "Son, I know what you're going through. And I want you to know. I'm proud of you. You're doing what I should have done years ago, teaching this family some damn respect." I'll admit, I cried after that call. Hearing my father, the man who raised us all, stand by me, it gave me strength I didn't know I had. When the trial began, Daniel walked into the courtroom smirking, wearing a suit he couldn't afford without my money. He thought this was just a joke, that I'd back down at the last second. But he was about to learn that some lessons come with a heavy price. And the gavel hadn't even struck yet. The morning of the trial, I felt a strange mix of dread and determination. My stomach was twisted in knots, but deep down, I knew I had done the right thing. I dressed carefully in my best suit, the one my wife used to love, and walked into the courthouse. The hall smelled of old wood and polished floors, and the echoes of people's footsteps made the tension almost tangible. Daniel was already there, leaning against the wall, smirking as usual. He saw me and gave a little wave, like we were friends meeting for coffee. My blood boiled, but I ignored him. Today wasn't about pride. Today was about justice. The courtroom slowly filled with family members, neighbors, and a few curious strangers. My sister Linda was sitting in the front row, her face pale and tight. She avoided my eyes, but I could see the guilt in her posture. My father was there too, quietly observing, a faint nod encouraging me to stay strong. The judge called the case, and the room fell silent. Daniel's lawyer started speaking first, trying to paint him as a misguided young man who simply needed guidance. I almost laughed. $15,000, gone like that, and they were calling it a simple mistake? When it was my turn to testify, I stood up, my hands gripping the edge of the witness stand. My voice was strong, though my heart was pounding. "Your Honor, I trusted my nephew. I treated him like a son. And he stole from me. He stole thousands of dollars, things I saved for decades. And when I confronted him, he lied, laughed, and even bragged about it. This isn't a mistake. This is betrayal." I watched the jury carefully. Some of them shifted uncomfortably, clearly understanding the weight of what I was saying. My sister's lips trembled, but she didn't interrupt. Then came the moment I dreaded. Daniel's turn. He sat, legs crossed, looking bored, as if this whole trial was a waste of his time. He started speaking, trying to charm the jury, telling stories about how he borrowed the money to make things better, how he was pressured by life, and never meant to hurt anyone. I felt my blood boil again. The arrogance. The lack of responsibility. I stood up, voice rising, emotions spilling over. "You never meant to hurt anyone? Do you see the look on your mother's face? Do you see how you've humiliated me in front of this family? You don't just take what's not yours and call it borrowing." The judge banged the gavel. "Order in the court," he said, but I had already made my point. Daniel's smirk faltered for a second. I could see it, the first crack in his armor. Then came the real shock of the day. One of my cousins, Carla, who had always sided with Daniel, got up. She walked to the stand, looking nervous. I need to tell the truth," she said. "I visited Daniel last month. He was bragging about taking Uncle Rich's card. He said he could spend whatever he wanted and no one could stop him. He even showed me the purchases." The courtroom went silent. Daniel's jaw dropped, his face turning red. "Carla, you can't." "I can," she interrupted. "I'm tired of covering for him. And I think it's time everyone knows who he really is." The jury scribbled notes furiously. The judge nodded, clearly impressed with the credibility of the testimony. But Daniel didn't give up. He tried to argue. She's lying. She's jealous. But his voice lacked conviction. His lawyer stuttered, clearly flustered by Carla's honesty. Then came the most gut-wrenching moment. My sister, Linda, stood up. Your Honor. I've been trying to protect him. I thought it was my job as his mother to shield him. But I see now. I was wrong. Daniel has to face the consequences of his actions. I support Uncle Rich in this case. I felt my chest tighten, a mix of relief and sadness. Relief because finally, the truth was clear. Sadness because the bond one had with my sister, and the trust one had placed in her to guide her son, had been broken. The trial continued with more evidence, receipts, delivery confirmations, even photos of Daniel using the items he bought with my credit card. He couldn't deny it. Every lie he told before now crumbled under the weight of proof. During cross-examination, Daniel's arrogance began to crumble completely. I could see the fear in his eyes as I asked simple questions. Did you buy this suit with my card? Did you know this was my money? Did you plan to return it? Each yes or no, he muttered, felt like a nail in his coffin. And then, the most satisfying moment. The defense attorney, trying to mitigate the damage, suggested a repayment plan. Daniel looked at me, pleading silently, hoping I would accept it. But I shook my head. No more chances. No more lies. No more stolen money. Finally, the judge leaned forward, eyes sharp. Daniel Wilson, the court finds sufficient evidence that you deliberately took funds from your uncle. You are hereby ordered to repay $15,000, plus an additional $15,000 in punitive damages. The room erupted. My father smiled quietly. My sister's face crumpled, tears flowing freely. Daniel's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. 15,000. And 15,000 more. Twice the amount he had stolen. He looked at me, defeated, anger and shame mingling on his face. You can't do this, he whispered. I met his gaze steadily. I already have. And now you will finally learn that actions have consequences. Carla leaned over and whispered, serves him right. I nodded. It did. He had been untouchable in his own mind, thinking family would forgive anything. The court proved him wrong. Even as the trial ended, I felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. The law had done its part, but the family scars would take years to heal. Some relatives avoided me for taking the hard stance. Others silently respected my courage. And Daniel? Well, he had learned a lesson the hard way. The victory wasn't just financial. It was moral. He had faced the full weight of his betrayal and, for once, couldn't charm or manipulate his way out. I walked out of that courthouse exhausted but proud. Little did I know, the real confrontation, the personal reckoning between me and Daniel, was still to come. Because justice in court doesn't always end the story. Sometimes, the real drama is in watching someone you loved finally see the consequences of their own greed. After the court ruling, I thought maybe, just maybe, things would start to calm down. I thought Daniel would learn his lesson and the family would slowly heal. But, of course I was wrong. The day after the trial, I received a call from my sister. Her voice was shaky, almost pleading. Rich, please, let him come home for dinner. He's lost everything and he's broken. I didn't respond immediately. Broken? Maybe. But that didn't erase what he had done. I took a deep breath and said, Linda, he broke more than his own life. He broke the trust of everyone who cared about him. If he wants to rebuild, it starts with making amends, not coming over as if nothing happened. She didn't like that answer. I could hear her frustration through the phone. You're too harsh, she said. Family should forgive. I hung up, feeling both anger and sadness. Forgive. Forgiveness without accountability wasn't forgiveness at all. It was enabling. Meanwhile, Daniel was starting to realize the weight of his actions. Word spread in our small town about the trial. Friends who once envied his lifestyle suddenly avoided him. Even his colleagues at work started whispering, giving him sideways glances. I heard he couldn't even get credit anywhere. The court judgment followed him everywhere. One evening, I saw him at the grocery store. His usual swagger was gone. He was hunched over, wearing old threadbare clothes, clearly a shadow of the arrogant man he had been just weeks before. Our eyes met, and I could see the mix of shame, fear, and anger. He looked like a man who had lost everything that wasn't his by right. "Uncle Rich," he muttered, barely audible. I didn't mean for this to go so far." I shook my head. "You meant exactly what you did. Now you face the consequences." After that, things got even more complicated. My sister tried desperately to mend the pieces. She begged me to forgive him, to let the family reunite for holidays and birthdays. But I couldn't. Every time I looked at him, I remembered the lie, the betrayal, the laughter in my face as he spent money that wasn't his. Then came the letter from the bank. Daniel had been ordered to pay $15,000 in restitution plus $15,000 in punitive damages, but he still hadn't paid. The court allowed him a structured repayment, but he was already behind. Each day I received notices of missed payments, and my anger grew. He had the opportunity to make this right and failed. During one family gathering, tensions erupted. My cousin tried to hand him a plate of food, saying, "Daniel, come on, try to enjoy life again." Daniel snapped. "I don't want your pity," he yelled. "I've lost everything because of him." And he pointed directly at me. The room went silent. My father's eyes narrowed. "Daniel," he said, voice firm but calm, "you lost this because you stole. Not because Rich stood up for himself. You chose this path." Daniel's face turned red. "You don't understand. He ruined my life." I finally spoke, voice steady. "I didn't ruin your life. You ruined your own life. I simply held you accountable." The court confirmed it. Every consequence you're facing is because of what you did, not because of me. For the first time, he looked uncertain. That arrogance that once shielded him was gone. I could see the fear creeping in. Fear not of me, but of reality itself. Then came the phone calls from neighbors, friends, and even distant relatives. Everyone who once admired him now warned him to take responsibility. He tried to explain, to justify, but nobody believed him. Every lie he had built his life on was collapsing. It didn't stop there. Daniel's social media presence became a nightmare. People started posting about the trial, the stolen money, the court ruling. Every friend who once envied his success now mocked him. One post read, "When you steal from family, don't be surprised when the law bites back, twice." That post went viral in our town. Daniel was humiliated publicly, in front of people he had once considered friends. The breaking point came when he finally called me one night. His voice was trembling, full of desperation. "Uncle Rich, please. I'll do anything. I'll work extra. I'll sell my car. Just don't push it. I can't handle more humiliation." I listened quietly. My heart ached, but I reminded myself why I had taken this path. "Daniel, you can't fix what's already done. You can't erase the betrayal. But you can start by paying back what you owe, honestly, completely, and on time. Anything else is meaningless." He was silent, and I could hear the weight of reality pressing down on him. No excuses. No charm. No manipulation. Only truth. Finally, the day came when the court ordered him to make his first large repayment. He showed up at the bank, sweating, avoiding my eyes. I watched him write the check for $30,000. The original $15,000 plus the punitive damages. That moment, standing there, I felt a surge of relief. The law had worked. Justice had been served. And yet, the true victory was not in money. It was watching Daniel face the consequences he once thought he could evade. Watching him, stripped of arrogance and pretense, finally understand the damage he caused. He wouldn't admit it out loud, not yet. But I could see it in the way he walked away from that bank, shoulders slumped, head low. The boy who laughed in my face, who thought he was untouchable, was gone. The real triumph, I realized, was not about humiliation or revenge. It was about accountability. About showing that betrayal has a price. And sometimes, that price is far heavier than anyone imagines. By the time I returned home that evening, the house felt lighter. I sat in my favorite chair, hands trembling from relief and emotion, and whispered to myself, "Finally, justice." Little did I know, the last chapter, the ultimate confrontation and the moral closure, was still ahead. But the path to it had been paved with truth, accountability, and the firm understanding that family loyalty does not mean tolerating betrayal. The weeks following Daniel's repayment were strangely quiet. The courtroom battles were over, the legal documents signed, and the money transferred. Yet, the tension within our family lingered like a stubborn fog. The damage had been done, and even though justice had been served, trust is not something easily mended once it's shattered. I kept my distance from Daniel at first. Every time he came near, I felt a rush of anger mixed with disappointment. But I also noticed something I hadn't expected. He was different. The arrogance that had once radiated from him like heat had vanished. He was quieter, more cautious, almost fragile. He didn't try to charm me anymore, didn't offer excuses, and certainly didn't laugh in my face. One afternoon, he approached me at the front porch. I was sitting in my rocking chair, sipping tea, watching the sunlight dance on the garden. He hesitated, hands in his pockets, head bowed. "Uncle Rich." I just wanted to say, "I'm sorry," he said quietly. No smirk, no attempt to manipulate. Just raw, awkward apology. I studied him. For months, I had imagined this moment 100 times. Maybe I'd shout, maybe I'd turn away, maybe I'd demand something more. But I realized in that moment that I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to humiliate him further. I needed him to feel the weight of what he had done. "Daniel," I said slowly, "your apology, it means something. But do you understand why this happened? Not just the court, not just the money, but why the family suffered." He nodded, swallowing hard. "Yes. I see now. I was selfish. I only thought about myself. I betrayed everyone who trusted me. You gave me so much, and I treated it like it didn't matter." It was the first time I felt a sliver of hope. Maybe he would finally learn. Maybe, after all the pain, there was a chance for him to rebuild. The next challenge, of course, was my sister. Linda had been torn apart by the trial. She had supported her son blindly for years, but seeing him humbled, paying back his debts, and finally facing the truth changed something in her. She approached me cautiously one evening, her voice trembling. "Rich. I was wrong. I should have held him accountable years ago. I protected him, and it only made things worse. I see that now," she admitted. I nodded. "It's never too late to do the right thing, Linda. But we can't pretend this never happened. We have to rebuild the trust slowly, with honesty, not lies." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I will. I promise." Over the next months, I watched Daniel work hard to regain some dignity. He took on extra shifts, even started volunteering at the community center. I heard from neighbors that he apologized personally to friends he had lied to or taken advantage of. He wasn't perfect, and he still carried the shame, but he was learning the value of integrity. There was one unforgettable moment that made me realize the transformation was real. Daniel came to help me fix the old fence in the backyard. We worked in silence at first, the air thick with unspoken words. Then, as we hammered the last plank, he turned to me. "Uncle Rich," he said, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But thank you for not giving up on me completely. You didn't let me get away with it, and I think I needed that more than I realized." I looked at him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. I realized that justice isn't always about punishment. Sometimes, it's about teaching someone to face the consequences of their actions, to feel the weight of betrayal, and to grow from it. As for the rest of the family, things slowly settled. Some relatives remained distant, unable to forgive or forget. Others quietly expressed admiration for the way I handled the situation. Firmly, without malice, ensuring accountability. My father, ever wise, told me one evening, "Richard, sometimes standing up for what's right is the hardest thing we do. But the lessons it teaches are worth more than money or pride." Daniel still struggles occasionally. Old habits die hard. But the man who once laughed in my face, thinking he was untouchable, has learned that life doesn't forgive lies, betrayal, or theft easily. He has to earn respect, rebuild relationships, and carry the memory of what happened as a constant reminder. And maybe one day, he'll be better for it. As for me, I learned a lesson too. Family loyalty is important, yes, but it doesn't mean tolerating betrayal. True love and respect require boundaries, accountability, and sometimes, the courage to confront wrongdoing, no matter how much it hurts. Looking back now, I feel a strange sense of closure. Daniel faced his consequences. My sister faced her own blind spots. The rest of the family learned that justice can coexist with compassion. And I found peace in knowing that, for once, truth and fairness won over deception and greed. I often sit in my chair now, watching the sunlight on the garden, remembering how fragile trust can be and how strong consequences must sometimes be. And I tell myself this: the world isn't fair all the time, but if you stand for what's right, the scales of justice can tilt, even if only a little. In the end, Daniel learned the hard way that stealing from family is not just theft. It's a betrayal of trust, love, and respect. And no amount of charm or lies can shield you from the consequences. That was the moral of this story. Karma has a way of catching up, and sometimes, it delivers more than you ever imagined. And yes, he finally paid me back. Twice over.